ask yourself, if a year goes by and you're still in the same place you are with your money or your business in general, how will you feel? And the answer is generally probably not great. Welcome to Profit and Prosper, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are ready to make some money while doing what they love. On this podcast, we're going to pull back the curtain and talk about all things business and money, but I promise you this is not your typical boring numbers talk. I'm your host, Sarah Young, a CPA and CFO with over a decade of experience in finance, business, and leadership. I'm going to share everything I've learned from helping my clients grow more profitable businesses and keep more of what they earn while growing my own successful business along the way. You'll feel empowered and confident that you too can grow your wealth, live a rich life, and have an impact. Stick with me and you might even start to think that finance is fun. Let's dive in. What's up, y'all? Welcome back to this week's episode of the Profit and Prosper podcast. So this week I am doing a bit of a roundup. This is a little of a different style than what I normally do on the podcast, but I have noticed over the last several weeks some recurring themes coming up on client calls, on consults that I have with people, in the DMs on Instagram. And so I just wanted to address these themes. My guess is that every single one of you listening to this episode is going to identify with at least one or two of the four things I'm going to talk about in this episode, because I think we all go through these stages. I think we all go through these just phases in our business as you grow from 0 to 100,000 to 500 to millions to, beyond. I think everybody goes through these different stages. So as you listen, if you resonate with any of these, understand you're totally not alone. These are really common. And if you haven't experienced it yet, then I would encourage you to step back and really dig deep and ask yourself, have you actually experienced this and you just didn't realize it? Or maybe you just haven't experienced it yet, but you probably will. So these things I'm going to talk about, these are four things that I see coming up with business owners that are holding you back. And these are really more mindsets that I find, and these all have an impact on your ability to show up in your business and make more money. So money mindset and money habits, this is something that you will hear me talk about just kind of all the time, because the longer I'm in business, the more I realize that the money mindset, general mindset, your money habits, your behaviors, these things that you're probably not even aware of unless you implement a practice to become aware of them, they are there all the time. So these are the things that really will hold you back in business. Or on the other hand, if you address it, if you acknowledge that these are normal things that people think and feel and believe that just come up as a, part of running a business, on the other hand, they can propel you forward if you address them. So the four things that I see, we're going to talk through. I'm going to give you some stories of how these have shown up in my business, in clients' businesses, and we'll also talk about the antidote. So the things that you can do to address these issues. So let's just jump right in, okay? I'm sure I'm going to have a lot to say about each of these. So let's just go. The number one mindset that holds people back is imposter syndrome. This is one that I have struggled with since I've started my business. I am getting to a point lately where it does not bother me as much. It still comes up every now and then, but imposter syndrome is one that happens, I find, with men and women really at any stage of your business. So imposter syndrome is really where, you've probably heard of this before, but it's where you step back and say, do I really deserve this? I think this comes down to a worthiness issue, at least it does for me. And, the good things that happen to you, you question if you really deserve them. The way that it showed up for me especially in the beginning of my business, or not really the beginning, but when I made the switch from doing bookkeeping over into exclusively CFO services, was calling myself a CFO. For whatever reason, I felt really, I just felt weird about calling myself a CFO because I come from a background in, Big Four, public accounting. I just didn't see a lot of people who were like me and on the younger side who were women who were CFOs. And so calling myself a CFO was something that I struggled with and delayed doing for a long time. I think that imposter syndrome can also cause people to justify in their heads not addressing things. So if you have ever said to yourself, I don't have time to do this, I'm too busy, something that I have realized this year is that I have held myself back by holding on to the busy work. And the busy work is almost like a comfort blanket for me because it's what I'm used to. And literally this year in 2022, I estimate that I have probably lost out on at least $20,000, if not $100,000 in revenue. Literally $100,000 is not out of the question. I have missed out on that because I did not grow my team. Specifically, this is a tax person. I have been saying for almost a year that I wanted to hire a tax person starting in Q4 2021. I remember telling people, I'm going to hire a tax person this year. I can't do another tax season with me as the primary person. And then Q1 came around, Q1 2022 came around, and I hadn't done it because various reasons. I convinced myself that, it's only, 4 or 5 returns per week, every week from January through April. I can do this. And then what happened in Q1? But I got, my husband and my 2-year-old and I, we all collectively got a stomach virus that was really bad. Then we all got COVID and had to be on lockdown for a while. Then followed that up with the flu. And then we had a nanny and she quit. And we had a struggle with finding a daycare. And it was just like one thing after another. And what happened, of course, but I didn't keep up with my 4 or 5 tax returns every week from January through April. So by the time the tax deadline came around, I did use my team some to say like, hey, help me prep this. But a lot of the work still fell to me. And then, some of the returns, we filed extensions because that just happens sometimes. And it's not a bad thing. It just happens. And, I continued throughout the summer to not hire a tax person because I was like, well, I'm using my team. They're helping me to prep and get things organized. However, I was still doing a ton of the work, a ton of the review, a ton of the, big picture stuff, all of the tax planning, all of the tax strategies, and just has continued through this entire year. And my husband actually said to me several weeks ago, he's like, Sarah, you've been talking about hiring a tax person for months. How much time have you spent doing tax work this year that you could have used for doing more sales and marketing activities? And how many clients could you have gotten had you done that? And I was like, okay, tell it like it is. But it's true. I mean, it's true. I really think that I have probably held myself back from easily, $50K in revenue, if not up to $100K, seriously this year, by holding on to the busy work because it is a comfort blanket for me. And because I'm talking about this in the imposter syndrome section of this episode, because I really think that for me, holding on to the busy work, or rather letting go of the busy work, means that I have to then step into my next shift, into my next iteration of me as a CEO of my business. And so I'm taking another step out of the day-to-day and into the next level. And I think that that is scary on some level. I mean, yes, that is my goal. I want to do that. But when it comes to actually doing it, I didn't do the things I needed to do earlier this year to make that happen. So now I am making it happen. I am hiring a tax person. It's going to be great. Where my husband's challenge to me was, can you not do a tax return? Can you not prepare a tax return for all of 2023? And I was like, you know what? That would be a great challenge because that's not what I need to be spending my time on anyways. So I say all of this because I think that imposter syndrome and having self-doubt about what it is that you can do holds people back. And I realize that most of the time I talk about finances, and this is not necessarily directly about money, but it also is. Because if we apply this to your money mindset, I find that when it comes time to actually, becoming a millionaire, for example, especially for those of us who are like me, you grew up, middle class, and the idea of a millionaire was like some old man who had a huge house on a hill behind a big fancy gate. And when you actually think about yourself being that millionaire, it's like, something doesn't reconcile in there because of imposter syndrome. And so I think this happens a lot when it comes to money stuff. And I think that it can cause people to self-sabotage, either like me, where, you don't do the things, you don't make the investments, you don't hire the team to get yourself to the next level. Or on the other hand, maybe it's just you do grow your business, but then you end up self-sabotaging by spending all your money on stuff that you don't actually need because the idea of keeping it and investing it and building up your bank balance can be scary. Once you've made 100K in sales, what does it take to save 100K? I'm on a mission to help 1,000 entrepreneurs turn their business's cash flow into $100,000 in wealth, whether that comes from paying off debt, saving more money, investing into retirement accounts, or reinvesting into your business to build a cash-flowing asset. That's $100 million in capital in the hands of world-changing business owners just like you. Can you imagine the impact that would have? Building the first 100K in investments from your business would be life-changing. It'll teach you the money habits and financial strategy that you need to get you not just to 100K, but eventually to financial freedom. I want to help you stop being self-employed and constantly on the cash flow hamster wheel. Let's elevate you into a CEO that thinks about their money like I do. I've been hard at work here behind the scenes revamping my Profit and Prosper group program into a deeper 12-month coaching program that'll teach you my signature in-for-profit method for building 100K in net worth. And it officially relaunches on October 24th. I'll be your CFO and financial coach for an entire year as you go through the seasons of your business. I'll help you implement my profit method and turn your business's cash flow into wealth. Go to profitandprosper.co/join now or the link in the show notes to learn more and sign up. So the antidote to imposter syndrome, in my opinion, these are some things that I have done. Number one, I look at the data. Data in this case being financial data. And I say that because I think that data is something that your brain really cannot argue with, right? Because data is what it is. You can't say, like your brain can't tell you, I had my biggest, this is actually a true statement, I had my biggest cash month ever in the month of September. My brain can't look at that and say, Sarah, you're not doing the thing because I did. It is a fact. Data to show you like, yes, in fact, you are running a business. You are bringing revenue in every month. Yes, you are growing, right? You are generating a profit. I think it's helpful just to look back at data because your brain, even if it may want to, cannot argue with that. The other thing that has been really helpful when it comes to imposter syndrome for me is asking for feedback from clients. So what I mean by that is when I go to renew a contract with a client, for example, I will make a point to say like, hey, can we get some feedback? Maybe I take 5 minutes at the end of a call and just say, hey, we're renewing. How is it going? And asking for feedback. And in most cases, I get pretty good feedback. And I certainly have clients who say, hey, it would be really great if we could spend more time talking about this thing. And so I make the change. But it's something that helps me with imposter syndrome again, because it shows me that, hey, I am doing the CFO work for clients. I can call myself a CFO because I'm doing the thing and I'm helping them. And they're actually telling me that. And then on the flip side, if you do ask and they say, hey, it would be great to focus on this thing or do more of this or less of this, then you can also address it. And so again, it's just another form of data. Data in your business is how are your customers feeling? So feedback is another antidote. The third one is really just awareness. And so it's like me when I sit back and say, oh, I really need a tax person, but I don't have time this week to write a job description. And really stop and ask yourself, is that true? Is that a true statement? Just bring awareness to, if there's potentially another reason underlying your actions and you're telling yourself one thing, but the real reason underneath is something entirely different. So just bringing awareness to that. And the way that I bring awareness to that is honestly just practice. So I have my planner I sit down and do every day. I use a full focus planner. There's a weekly review in there every week. And it talks about what worked, what didn't, what did you accomplish, what can you do better next week. And that's something where if I have as one of my tasks, hire a tax person, and I didn't do it, and I notice that I'm rolling it forward week after week after week, then I'm going to stop and ask myself, what's going on here? What's really going on? This is a muscle that just bringing awareness to your own underlying mindsets and, beliefs will get easier over time. All right, so number one thing holding most people back, many people back in business is imposter syndrome. And number two thing, the next thing we're going to talk about is a scarcity mindset. I think that between these two things, probably 95% of you should be resonating with one or both of these. So a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset, a scarcity mindset can show up in a lot of different ways, but it might be having beliefs of things like, why would anybody ever buy from me? There's all these competitors out there doing something similar. They've been around for a long time. Why would anybody come to me instead of them? And I need to charge a lower price to convince people to come to me instead because I have nothing else of value that they would want. You can also probably hear a little bit of imposter syndrome in there too. You can also think like there's only so many clients in the world, right? If I raise my price, if I hold my boundaries, no one's ever going to buy from me again. I think a scarcity mindset is just saying like, if I take this money here, then it's taking from someone else. Like if I charge my clients a higher price, I'm taking something from them. That is scarcity, believing that there is a limited pool of resources, as opposed to abundance, which is believing that there's an unlimited pool of resources, right? And instead of taking something from someone when you charge them for whatever you're doing, abundance would be saying like, I am providing them amazing value and we are having a value exchange. They're getting something amazing from me and I'm getting money from them that is very fair for the value I'm providing to them. That's abundance. Do you see the difference? I think if you show up every day with a scarcity mindset, as many, many people do, it makes you, charge low prices. It has people not maintaining boundaries in their work, on their calendar, with the contracts, the things that they do or don't do. Like they say yes to everything that their clients ask them for. So to give you an example of this, I'm going to use a client mini case study. So in an intensive, I have my cash flow intensive. I do a few of those every now and then. I did one a few weeks ago with a client who had been in business for a while, like 5 years or more. And still, she had some subcontractors. This one is a service-based business, B2B. She had some contractors working for her, but she was still doing most of the work and feeling burned out and all over the place and not making enough money. So not paying herself regularly despite having all this money piling up in her bank account, and just came to me and said, you know what, I really don't want to be burned out. I want to be able to hire a team. I want to be able to pay myself well into the 6 figures. I want to be able to grow my business. Please help. How can we make this work? And so that's what we did. So what I found pretty quickly was that in this case, she was not really holding boundaries for clients. She was charging super low prices despite having this really great depth of expertise and experience in the field that she was in. She was not getting paid by her clients. Her clients were paying her late or not at all in some cases, and she had a ton of different offers. Everything was customized, right? Every client was like, oh, I'm a special snowflake. I need this, this, and this. And I said, okay, the first thing you're going to do is we are going to figure out which of your offers is profitable, which of your offers is aligned with the work that you actually want to be doing, with what you feel lit up by. And fun fact, those things tend to be the same. Interestingly, most of the time, the profitable offers tend to be the same as the ones that people feel excited to show up for and do. We're going to talk about what types of clients are able to pay the prices that you can charge justifiably, right? And who your ideal clients are, like who you're going to work with. And the delivery model, meaning what kinds of team members would serve those offers, but starting with the offers. And so streamlining down from customized everything to a handful of very clear-cut offers. And so instead of having, just general services listed on a website, tons and tons of services, we're saying we're basically offering a low, a medium, and a high offer. And then the next thing, once you get clear on your offers and what you're going to deliver to your clients, what is the outcome, and then what is the delivery mechanism that is also profitable for you, you're going to go and make an investment with a lawyer to get a contract drawn up that you're going to start using. And then we're going to get a different, billing and payment processing system that charges your clients automatically ACH payments every single month so that you don't have this problem of, 1, doing work outside of scope, 2, not getting paid on time, getting paid well after the fact, and really just being stretched thin because you're doing so many different things. And the pushback on this, and this happens every time I talk about this with clients, the pushback initially it always comes down to a scarcity mindset. Meaning, if I hold these boundaries, what if these clients leave, right? If I change my offers and I don't offer the exact package that my current biggest client has, they're going to leave me. And I said, so what? Do you want to work with this client? Do you want to be doing the type of work that they want you to do? The answer is pretty much always no. In this case, the answer was no. And I said, okay, so let them go. And then the next sort of pushback is, who's going to pay me this much to do this offer? What if, they end up needing something out of scope? And I said, 1, you are the expert, so you are here to tell them what the best way for them to get their outcome is. That's up to you. And I think that you would be surprised when you raise your vibration. I think if you go back to episode 16, I talked about this with Lauren Woodrick. If you raise the vibe of what your offers are, you will attract a different level of clients. And you need to be okay with letting go of the ones who don't align. So I did this back when I went from bookkeeping to CFO work. I made the switch where I stopped taking on new bookkeeping clients and I kept serving them through the end of the year just because I didn't want to leave them in a lurch towards the end of the year. I didn't feel like that was right. And I went to them. There must have been 10 or 12 probably that I went to, and I said, hey, I'm not doing this anymore. Let me explain to you my new packages. What do you think? Do you want to stay? And all of them left except for one. And that was hard because I remember in January, after I let all of them go, I think I lost like $7,000 or so a month in recurring revenue, which is pretty much, that's more than what I pay myself monthly. And so that was a hard thing to do, but I had to recognize that I was having this scarcity mindset of like, oh, I need to keep this money, and say, hey, if I let these clients go, then I have more capacity. My team has more capacity. I can go very quickly make that $7,000 up with just a couple of new clients under my new offers. And ultimately, that's what I did. And I've been able to grow my business so much faster. So the antidote to a scarcity mindset, I think, again, comes back to data, for one. And in this case, I like to, instead of thinking about like financial data, I really like to run the numbers on how many people are there in the world. So in the client example I gave where she's like, who's going to pay me this much money? I was like, well, businesses making high 6 figures, 7 figures are going to pay this much money for this type of service if you can deliver, which she can. And we have to do the math, right? Of saying like, maybe you don't know many because you haven't been seeking them out before, but I forget, I think there's like 30 million businesses in the United States. That might be a completely wrong number. Tens of millions of businesses exist in the United States alone. I think the population is like 330 million, or at least it was a few years ago. It's probably bigger now. Like 330 million people, right? All she needed, so we did the math on how many clients she needed to meet her goals, and it was like five clients. It was like, surely you can find 5 clients out of the tens of millions of businesses that exist in the United States, right? And I think when you put it that way, it sort of puts everything into perspective, right? How many people are in your niche that you could possibly serve? And all you need is a tiny slice of that to make the numbers work. And that brings me to the second antidote, which is having a clear vision and a plan. So a clear vision was, in the example I had, like, what does she want? Who does she want to work with? What are the types of services she wants to provide? What types of work does she want to be doing versus what she wants to outsource? How much money does she want to bring home? That is the vision. And then something that we did was we worked on a plan of, well, how do we actually make that happen, right? So having a clear plan of saying, hey, how much revenue do I need to have coming in to pay my team and pay myself and my other expenses? And then, of course, taxes. That is some math that we can do, right? And then from there, literally saying, if I have 5 clients paying me this much per month, I will get to my revenue goal. This is totally doable. And I think that that is a great antidote to a scarcity mindset. The third area that I see holding people back is perfectionism. Y'all, I am a raging perfectionist, and it has been so hard for me to put anything out that is less than perfect. But again, it's a muscle. The more you do it, the easier it gets. So I've talked about this before in a few episodes. I cannot remember which ones, but something that I highly recommend for all of you, especially women, go listen to Cara Lowenthal's podcast. It's called Unfuck Your Brain. She has an episode. I'll link it. I think it's episode 161. I don't know. It's weird that I remember that specific number, but I've listened to it so many times. She talks about perfectionist fantasies where you get caught in this trap of imagining how if you execute on this thing perfectly, how amazing you're going to feel. And you get this hit of dopamine. It makes you feel so good. And then you say, I'm going to start this on Monday and it's going to be perfect. And I'm going to do all the things I've never done before, right? And then Monday comes and you don't. And then you start giving yourself a hard time for falling short of your perfectionist fantasy. And you feel bad about yourself. And the only way out of it is to imagine how perfect it's all going to be when you come back tomorrow and try again. Or when you come back next Monday or next month and try again. And then you get caught in this loop. A lot of business owners, I find this especially with newer business owners, people who are less than, 1 to 200,000 a year in revenue, because I think to get past 100K, this is one of those things you've got to let go of. You have to let go of perfectionist fantasies or you will never, you will not. Let me say this differently. You will have a very hard time getting past, 100 to 200K in revenue. So really asking yourself, like when you're showing up, when you're making your plan for what you're going to do in your business, are you expecting perfection? And one of the ways I see that showing up as it relates to finances is people thinking, well, I'm not good at this. I'm not good at numbers. I'm not good at math. I don't understand finance stuff. Finance stuff is for the finance bros. This isn't for me. And so because I don't understand it perfectly, I'm just going to ignore it. Because surely if I try, I will fail. And it's not worth doing anything if I can't do it perfectly. Doing anything a little bit is better than being stuck paralyzed. When it comes to money stuff specifically, if you're thinking like, I just don't understand this, I'll figure it out later one day when I can really dig in and like either afford to hire a CFO like me full-time, not full-time, but monthly in my business or whatever you're telling yourself. Ask yourself, if a year goes by and you're still in the same place you are with your money or your business in general, how will you feel? And the answer is generally probably not great. So on the flip side, what if you say, hey, in a year, even if I've made 10% progress toward my goal, even 5% progress, 2% progress, isn't that better than 0? And so the antidote, I think, for perfectionism is awareness again. So just, again, like I have a practice where I write things down and just like review what I've been doing against the goals that I set for myself and constantly figuring out if I didn't achieve something, why didn't I achieve something? And in this case, if you do have perfectionist fantasies, like if you're saying, hey, I'll use myself as an example. I see these other CFO firms doing, millions of dollars already, tens of millions of dollars. They've been around for many, many years. I'm not as advanced as them. I can't have this huge team and this huge client list and running ads and all these other things like that just build over time. If I look at them and say, well, I can't get to where they are in the next week or month or 6 months or even a year. So because I'm not going to, get there immediately, is it not worth trying and making a step forward? So I think just being aware of if this is happening to you, if you are being paralyzed at the idea of being perfect, really ask if you're getting caught in the perfectionist fantasy loop. Because I certainly have experienced this many, many times with business, with health stuff, with pretty much every aspect of my life. And then the next challenge would be, if you think long-term about what you want to do, what is one step forward you can take? One tiny step forward, something that your brain will probably tell you this is not enough, right? Because it's not perfect. It's not the end goal yet. This is not enough to take this one tiny step. Do the step anyway, and then keep doing it. Maybe that tiny step is getting help. Maybe the tiny step is learning something, right? Maybe the tiny step is just putting a video out there or putting the content out there, sending an email, reaching out to one client, right? Take the one step. And if you keep doing that day after day after day, taking tiny steps that are probably individually nowhere near enough, quote unquote enough, over time, you'll find that you are so much closer to your goal than you would be had you said, no, I can't be perfect, so I'm not going to do it at all. Number 4 is self-reliance, thinking I can do it all myself. I actually had a whole episode 32, on bootstrapping your business, which really is another word for self-reliance. And so in that episode, I won't obviously go deep into it here. Go listen to that one. If you have ever said to yourself, like, I'm bootstrapping my business, this is something that people use as a source of pride. But I really question if this is the smartest thing to do. When I think about money habits and money mindsets of people who are already wealthy people are really good at identifying opportunities to use leverage. Wealthy people, millionaire CEOs, are not thinking of ways that they can do it all themselves. They're not. And so knowing that's a skill that you can learn to cultivate, I think this is something you need to do. So if you are, especially in the solopreneur stage, I think this happens. I mean, my story earlier about how I've not hired a tax person, this is also me relying too much on myself. So the question I want you to ask yourself as the antidote is, do you value time or money more? What do you value more? Before you answer this question, I think a lot of people might say, all my goals are related to dollars, so therefore, money is the most important thing and I need to keep as much as I can. But really, when you think about your long-term life goals, one of the exercises that I typically do with people as we set goals is not even financial related. It's tell me about your dream life, right? And I'm going to guess that your dream life involves you having time freedom, the options to do whatever you want. And so yes, money affords you time freedom, but I think time for most people is more valuable than money. So if that is the case, then why do you continue to get stuck in the loop of feeling like I have to DIY everything on my own, and this is the way to success? So just ask yourself that and sit with your answer for a few minutes. As I have grown my business, I used to consume so much free content out there, so much free content. And as I've grown my business, I consume a lot less. I still listen to podcasts. I still am on social media, but I'm really not even into lead magnets anymore, y'all. I used to do lead magnets all the time. And then over time, I have realized that free advice is really never enough. So when I listen to people's podcasts, it's really just to get me thinking about the next step. But if I want to do something in my business, I realize it's not going to be free. The free solution is not what is going to get me results. And so I think, again, that thinking like if you're constantly consuming only free content, then you're stuck in this trap of thinking, I can do everything myself and I don't need to invest in anything outside of myself to grow my business. So go back and listen to episode 32 about bootstrapping, and then think of ways that you can use leverage in your business to grow. And then also going back to having a clear vision for what you want in your life to answer the question of, what do you value most? What are the things you really value? And are you living in line with those things right now in your business? And then thinking like a millionaire and realizing you yourself are only going to get you so far. So that's all I've got for today. I hope that this was at least thought-provoking for you. I really think a good exercise would be to sit down and answer some of the questions that I posed in this episode. So just to revisit quickly, to recap, the 4 things I very commonly see holding business owners back are imposter syndrome, a scarcity mindset, perfectionist tendencies, and self-reliance or bootstrapping. So I want you to sit down, go through, maybe do some journaling, do some reviews, look back at your goals, and think about how are any of these things showing up in your business. And honestly, y'all, I would love to hear, honestly, I love it when people send me DMs after you listen to an episode and tell me something that resonated. Tell me something that you took away, because it helps me to know when I produce content that you like it, that you want more of this. So send me a DM on Instagram at It's Sarah Young. That is my personal Instagram. I still have my Young Co CFO account, but I'm more on my personal account. So send me a DM there. And tell me what you took away. Tell me which of these 4 things is showing up for you most in your business. The last thing I'll leave you with is, after this episode comes out, I think if I have my dates right, on October 24th, I am opening up for the waitlist for my Profit and Prosper group program. This has not been open for 6 months, and this will be the last time, I think, that I run this group exactly the way I'm doing it this time. Honestly, it's only going to get better. I love this group program, and this is going to be a huge focus area of mine as I move forward in the next year. So on October 24th, I will open the doors to the program for the waitlist only, and I will also have waitlist only bonuses for people who are on the waitlist. So go to trustyoungco.com/prosper, and you can get yourself on the waitlist for my group program. And just to sort of recap, I've talked about what is involved in this program, but really my goal is to teach you my profit method for how to create a profitable business and turn your profit into wealth. So really being intentional about thinking, if I want to be a millionaire one day, what are the things that you have to do as a business owner to actually get to $1 million in your bank account? And that doesn't always mean $1 million in sales. $1 million in your bank account is a very different thing. So we need to be aware and intentional of how we are increasing cash flow in our business, and then managing that money and investing it and saving it to build up your net worth. So I'm really excited to open this program back up. If you want to turn your cash flow into wealth, go get on the wait list, and I will see you guys all next week in the next episode. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. Now, I want you to go take some action. What's one thing you can do this week to create more profit in your business? Send me a DM on Instagram at YoungCoCFO and share your action item with me. If you have a question or topic you'd like me to dive into, or if you're feeling empowered about taking charge of your finances, let's continue the conversation. Go to profitandprosper.co to submit a question or topic for me to talk about on the show. And because we all profit and prosper better with friends, please leave me a review on Apple Podcasts, subscribe wherever you listen, and share the episode. Make sure you tag me at YoungCoCFO on Instagram so I can give you some love, and I'll see you in the next episode.